This morning, a retiring Republican official says he's going to back a Democrat for one of the state's top jobs.
I am tired of us being so polarized. I'm tired of us being divided.
Tarrant County Judge Glenn Whitley had a lot to tell us in Fort Worth. Campaign commercials are just getting started on TV. Greg Abbott has a new one out Tuesday.
Who is this ad right here aimed at? Women, suburbs, what?
Absolutely. This is aimed right at suburban women.
This morning, a veteran producer of political ads shares specific strategy that Abbott and Beto O'Rourke's campaigns are now using. And a group of Texas pastors preparing to sue over the state's new abortion law. We'll talk to one of the ministers about how she says it violates the freedom of religion.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you. We appreciate you spending some time with us this holiday weekend. Let's begin with some of the top political stories across our state this weekend. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is on a 131-stop bus tour across Texas right now. This is significant because Patrick did not campaign like this 4 years ago, and some say this is a sign of what could be a competitive race with Mike Collier. In 2018, Patrick defeated Collier by 5 points. The two are now in a rematch in November, and Patrick evidently feels the pressure not to take any vote for granted. Governor Greg Abbott says Texas is starting to bus migrants to Chicago. You know, the state already sends them to New York and D.C. Taxpayers have spent $12 million so far on this political stunt. Chicago's mayor called it a racist strategy, but said her city would welcome the migrants with dignity and respect. And Republicans are rushing to clarify a new state law after parents protested it in Southlake. Texas public schools are required to hang donated posters that read, quote, "In God We Trust." So one parent donated 2 posters that said that to Carroll ISD, except one of them had it spelled out in Arabic, and another one had "In God We Trust" with a rainbow flag behind it. Carroll ISD rejected it. Stay tuned to see what happens next with this side. Let's start, though, with a retiring Republican official who has a lot to say in his final few months in office. Glenn Whitley is the Tarrant County judge. He is a conservative, and he shared quite a bit with us in a brand new episode of Y'all-itics that we just released this morning. We wanted to share 2 excerpts this morning. First, how Whitley says we can end polarization. And Judge Whitley is also making news with us by saying that he will back a Democrat for one of the state's top offices. We met him in Fort Worth for this conversation.
We've got some competitive races here in Texas. Of course, you know, people say that every time, and we've seen total Republican control across the board for decades here now. How do you see this playing out this time around? Will it be more of the same, do you think? Or do you think that one of these statewide races could actually see a shakeup as far as Republican and Democrat?
You know, I think I'll be surprised if there's a shakeup. I tell you that the one person who I'll support statewide that will get me a little in trouble, Mike Collier for lieutenant governor.
He's the Democrat running against Dan Patrick.
He is the Democrat, and you know, basically, Dan Patrick came on the scene in 2006 with Empowered Texans, and since that point in time, they've basically declared war on local elected officials. They've blamed local governments for all the property tax problems, when in effect, you know, they've vowed that they're going to lower property taxes. Of course, they don't have any property taxes at the state level. And what they've done, as I was mentioning earlier, we've got over 700 people sitting in our jail today that belong to the state. They're not paying us for them.
Just in Tarrant County?
Just in Tarrant County.
These are people who've gone through the system, and they should be going to a state prison.
They've gone through the system, they've been sentenced, and they're waiting to be picked up and taken to the state.
So why aren't they?
Well, the state hadn't said they'd take them yet.
You said that you would support Mike Collier, the Democrat running for lieutenant governor. Why?
Because Mike is, one, he's a bean counter like me. He worked for Price Waterhouse. Mm-hmm. He also worked for Exxon, so he understands the oil business. And I just think he's someone who understands local control. And that's what I'm looking for. We do everything. We're the front door for basically all of the federal and the state services that the state and the federal government pass laws for us to do. Now, yes, the city does some of that, but we take care of the elections. We take care of all the administration for the courts. They have their district judges for the felonies, but we take care of all of the misdemeanors. We take care of all of that. We have the county jail, public health, which has been a little bit more in the spotlight over the last couple of years, public hospital. All of that stuff are things that we do, and they give us one avenue or one revenue source for that, and it's property taxes. Mm-hmm. So when they pass a law down there and they don't fund it, or they force us to keep their prisoners, that's a state mandated property tax increase. We used to call it unfunded mandates, but it's better understood if I say that we're paying $20 million plus a year because the state is not paying anything, and yet they're sitting down there talking about all the cash that they've got.
Let's go back to the op-ed here. Why did you write this, Judge? You're on the way out after 15 years as the top elected official in Tarrant County. 10 years before that, you served as Tarrant County Commissioner. Why didn't you just drop the mic and walk away?
Well, because I've never dropped the mic and walked away. But I would also, I am tired of us being so polarized. I'm tired of us being divided when I think America still works from a standpoint of we all want to work together to get something done. I think people want to solve the issues that are important to them, the economy, transportation, the problems with mental health, a lot of those types of things. And the parties have gone to the extremes and are dealing with issues. I'm not going to say they're not important, but to mainstream of America, they want to know what's going to happen that's going to make my life better.
But this isn't unique to Tarrant County. How do you think we got here? I have my own ideas of how we got here over the last 20 years, but how do you think we got here, Judge?
Well, again, it's because enough people aren't involved in the parties that the parties have been taken over by the far right or the far left.
Judge Whitley had a lot to say to us. He even told us the indicator to watch for if Tarrant County turns blue in the future. We just dropped this episode of Y'all-itics just this morning. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts. Families of the Uvalde victims are upset with Governor Greg Abbott right now. They want him to raise the age limit from 18 to 21 for people wanting to buy assault-style rifles. But Abbott, as we have seen, has so far refused to call a special legislative session. Ian Mitra is the senior managing editor for the Texas Tribune. He is in Austin as always. Ian, good morning to you. Beto O'Rourke is really hitting Abbott hard, saying he is not protecting kids. How big of an issue do you really expect Uvalde to be come November?
Yeah, I mean, this recently at a campaign event, the governor was asked about this, about raising the age to purchase assault-style rifles, and he said that there was constitutional concerns, citing a ruling in a recent federal court in Fort Worth. And the thing is that there have been families who have been calling for this for a while. They've been doing it at school board meetings in Uvalde and beyond. And so it's the sense of a lack of resolution for them is going to be something that they're going to continue to talk about because they don't see it as being resolved. So I think that's the issue that won't go away.
And it could weigh as we continue on in November here too. I want to talk about some reporting that you guys did at the Texas Tribune. The state's cotton crop decimated by the drought and extreme heat as well too. $2 billion in losses. Are Texans actually going to see any real impact from this, though? It sounds like we really could.
This is going to be felt. I mean, as you mentioned, a $2 billion hit. Texas is the nation's leading producer of cotton, and parts of the state like the High Plains, the South Plains this is really going to be impacting across the economy, as well as costs are going to go up. Anything related to cotton, the prices are going to go up because demand is going to be going up. So everyone will see it because of the drought. The drought's impact on the crop. Yeah,
interesting story there. Your website, texastribune.org. I am back to you in just a moment. Thank you very much. Coming up next here, we're taking apart the TV ads that Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke have begun to air. A veteran producer of campaign commercials talks about intent and the audience that each are aiming for. Plus, Texas pastors say their state's new abortion law violates their religious freedom. One minister says she and several others are now preparing to sue the state. Inside Texas Politics, back in a moment. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Labor Day weekend here traditionally is the start of heavy campaigning by political candidates. Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke are already on the air with ads. You might have seen those. But their first two spots are quite different from each other. We asked Vinny Minchillo to break down the strategy from each campaign. He is a veteran producer of Republican ads all across the country.
So we'll just, I'll hit play. We'll just watch this thing here.
All right.
Greg and I met in college. We married soon after. I learned what Greg Abbott was really made of when I saw how he responded to his paralyzing accident. His recovery took months, but he never gave up. And the joys of our marriage and adopting our daughter Audrey showed me the depths of his love and commitment. Hard work, perseverance, and family. That's what defines Greg Abbott and how he governs Texas.
They didn't touch anything politically in this ad. First reaction to it.
It's very dull. It's dull and it's dated.
Who is this ad right here aimed at? Women, suburbs, what?
Absolutely. This is aimed right at suburban women. And trying to say, you know, look, I adopted a daughter, and here's my lovely wife, and here I am with some nice people. So trying to soften him up with suburban women, which is clearly where his problem is going to be.
Because of Roe versus Wade or
Absolutely, for Roe versus Wade, and guns and Roe versus Wade.
My dad died when I was in high school. I had to wait tables at a place just like this to be able to pay for school. It took hard work, but Texas gave me the opportunity to succeed. That's why, as governor, I focus on creating jobs for all Texans by investing in education, expanding our energy industry, and by keeping taxes low for our families. We are securing the future of Texas so that everyone has the same opportunities that Texas gave me.
Abbott's defending himself in this ad instead of attacking O'Rourke. Is that the right thing to do here?
I think he's basically trying to reintroduce himself.
Why, though? He's been around 8 years, at least in this role.
Right, and now we've got 1 million new registered voters in Texas over the last year, 1.1 million new voters. And I think his image has hardened over the last few years. So this is an opportunity for him to come back, soften his image. Hey, look, I worked in a restaurant. My dad died. You know, have a little sympathy for me. And then here's how I've used that to bring opportunity to Texas. I think opportunity is an important word that he's going to be saying a lot through the campaign.
All right. Let's switch off to the other one here.
Of course, people are going to disagree on the big issues. But Greg Abbott signed the most extreme abortion ban in the United States.
No exception for rape? No exception for incest? $100,000 fines and jail time for doctors?
Only 11% of Texans agree with him.
I mean, this is a free country. We need a governor who gets that. And that's Beto.
O'Rourke's hitting hard in his first ads.
And this is a really good spot. It's a really, really good commercial. It's a really great idea. And what he's got to do, right now the polls show it kind of a party line election. He's got to give Republicans permission to come across and vote for Democrats.
So that's the whole point of having a Republican in here?
That's the whole point of that. His best issue is going to be abortion. And for a hardcore Trump Republican that they're advertising in this spot to say, you know what, I'm going to go across because I don't think, you know, his reasoning was not pro-abortion. His reasoning was freedom. You know, and I think that's an important thing to say.
Okay, one more. I think there's one more. Is there one more here?
Yep, there's one more.
From this day forward, August 25th,
women all across Texas are no longer free
to make decisions about our own body.
No longer free to choose if a pregnancy is right for us
or our families.
Not even in cases of rape
or incest.
And women will die because of it.
All because of Greg Abbott's abortion law. It's too extreme, so I'm voting for Beto,
who will give women our freedom back.
O'Rourke is going after the suburban women here, just like Abbott did with his ads, but they're two totally different tracks.
Yeah, and I think what he's done here is he's done 30 seconds of, wow, this is terrible, Abbott's terrible, but he's never made the turn for, hey, I'm Beto, and here's what I'm going to do to fix this. So this is all fear and no hope. So there's got to be a little hope, especially if you want to move women voters. You've got to show some light at the end of the tunnel, and this one does not do that. So beautifully made, but I think it's a swing and a miss.
At the end of the day, political ads are still pretty effective.
They still really work, and we're going to see probably in this midterm, gosh, maybe $5 or $6 billion spent.
$5 or $6 billion in TV ads?
They've been revising the number up. It's crazy the amount of money they're spending. Now, what's kind of funny is for Republicans, it works a little better for us. Our voters are a little older and index a little higher on TV viewership. For Democrats, like for example, Beto's trying to get people out who don't normally vote in midterms. Younger women, younger people, and they're not necessarily big TV viewers.
Now to church this morning. A group of Methodist ministers sent Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton a letter saying they intend to sue the state over its new abortion law. The Reverend Rachel Bachman is one of the clergy who signed the letter. She is the senior pastor at Oak Lawn United Methodist Church in Dallas. Reverend Bachman, I appreciate you inviting us over here. Let's talk about this letter here you sent. The law that passed, SB 8, that everyone knows about now, the argument you're making is it would impact the way you interact with your congregation. Explain how that would happen.
Well, I think it's fair to say that SB 8 gives a certain level of anxiety to clergy and others who would act in conversation or counseling or guidance of any kind with women who are pregnant. And certainly that's something that I run into on a regular basis. My understanding is that SB 8 would burden my ability to do that, would even challenge the possibility that I be prosecuted for doing so, even for matters of life versus life.
The concern, I guess, is that by counseling someone who might be pregnant, you would be seen as aiding or abetting an abortion if you suggested that person get an abortion. Mm-hmm. Have you had those conversations yet with anyone in your congregation?
I'd prefer not to say.
What message do you want this to send to Austin?
I hope it sends a counter narrative to, honestly, the heavy-handed narrative of Christian nationalism. That alternatively, I represent a mainline denomination. We represent hundreds of thousands of people, and I am really just trying to stand up and protect our rights and ability to have honest conversation and dialogue with our congregation members about things that matter.
A group of pastors in Florida filed a lawsuit over this. Do you expect this is going to end up in Texas courts?
Yes.
Unequivocally, it sounds like you think it's heading there regardless.
Absolutely. I don't think it's possible that this won't end up in Texas courts.
Reverend Bachman, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
It feels like November's big races are tightening up a little bit right now. We'll talk about the indicators to keep an eye on when we come back. Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. I am Mitra is back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here each week from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And Ashley Godot is back with us this week as well. She is an anchor and the managing editor of political content at KVUE TV in Austin. All right, let's start with you. It really seems like, and the chatter I'm hearing is that some of the big races in the state, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, maybe land commissioner, that they're really tightening up. Are you feeling that? Are you hearing that at all?
Well, certainly some early polls have indicated that there's some tighter matchups, and we'll certainly learn more in the coming weeks. But I think one thing that's clear is that there's like clear issues that are being laid out that we're going to be seeing. Whether it's Democrats talking about the response to the Uvalde shooting, whether it's the aspects of the Supreme Court's ruling overturning abortion, Roe v. Wade. I mean, these are things that are going to be talked about. And we also know that Republicans are going to be looking at the economy and also at Biden, making this more of a national race as much as they can.
But on a national scale, we saw former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin lose her race to an unknown Democrat for the state's only congressional seat there. Does that suggest anything about what might be happening in November?
Well, we see the Democrats gaining some ground back in a year where they didn't expect to. A midterm, I think the Dobbs case, helped the Democrats gain about 4 points. The pollsters say that Trump troubles have helped the Democrats gain about 3 points. Maybe the Uvalde in Texas has helped Democrats gain about 3 points. But the problem is the Democrats were more than 10 points behind going into this race. Dobbs made a big difference in Alaska. But the other big difference is that Sarah Palin is the second least popular politician in Alaska after Joe Biden. She could not get to 50. In Texas, somebody who's comparable to that might be Beto O'Rourke, who might not be able to get to 50.
Yeah, Ashley, at the end of the day, you and I have talked about this many times. Democrats are still going to have an uphill climb here in the state.
A big climb. You talk about the polling numbers, and I immediately start thinking about the University of Houston's recent Hobby School of Public Affairs poll, which showed very tight races until you narrowed it down to likely voters. So when you ask people, were they for certain that they were going to go vote in the November election, you really start to see the gaps widen and you see Republicans performing better. Even though Democrats say that they want those races to be tight, they're not saying that they're certain to go out to the polls. And that's really what the Democratic Party is going to have to overcome this November.
And Bud, you know, we've heard of the big blue wave for, you know, year after year, cycle after cycle. It never materializes here. Now that we're at Labor Day, the traditional start of heavy campaigning by so many of the political campaigns and candidates, what do you think we're going to see over the next 60, 65 days or so?
Yeah, actually, nobody promised the big blue wave this year, and nobody's been investing in it in Texas. Democrats are spending their money everywhere else and letting Beto take care of Texas. We're about to see, of course, the Republicans start the campaign against Democrats. We haven't really seen any anti-Beto ads. Basically, Beto's been working hard for a few months, and the Republicans will just get started. We'll see Governor Abbott's campaign. We'll see his message to the people, and we'll see a lot of, then we'll see, we'll have at least one debate.
Ian?
Yeah, I think Bud's right. I think, you know, we're going to see things tighten up, and we're going to see a lot of campaign ads and issues where, you know, the candidates are going to try to, you know, paint the other rather as much as they're painting themselves. And I think we're going to see these same debates that we've been hearing pop up. But I think a lot of it will also be very much, trying to, you know, whether it's the governor's race or in particular, there's going to be a lot of trying to like cast opponents within some of the kind of like more polarizing national figures in their parties.
And Ashley, final seconds here too. Can Democrats win a statewide seat?
Well, that's the test. That's what we'll have to wait to find out. They certainly think that they have the momentum to do it, but will the voters give it to them? We don't know.
We shall wait and see. Guys, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics and hope you can join us then. Until we see you then, have a great week.